Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been so long that I've actually sat down and talked to you guys. The last time was when I just moved to the UK and I was making content around moving to the UK, how to do it, how I did it as a Canadian. I know this is a different background and you must be wondering where in the world I am at this point of time. So I actually have moved out of the UK since, and I have moved to Vietnam. So I have been in Vietnam since the last almost 3 months. I can't believe that it's going to be almost 3 months since we actually moved here. It has been an amazing journey so far. Lots of things that we've learned, lots of things that we love about this place, and some things that we don't like. But overall, I've been super grateful for this journey. I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about why I left the UK. If you're planning to move to the UK, should you move? Where should you move? And I also want to talk to you guys about how I moved to Vietnam and why. Before we begin, I just wanted to reintroduce myself. So my name is Ria. I'm a Canadian citizen who moved to the UK on a youth mobility visa, and now I've moved out of the UK. I'm a digital nomad. I've been traveling for the last almost 2 years now, and I've been working remotely. So yeah, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. And if you're already subscribed to me, thank you so much for watching. Let's get right into the video. I know there's so many people who actually dream of moving to the UK for school, for work, to live there. And I personally moved to the UK from Canada because I just wanted a different experience. And I wanted to live closer to Europe, like I've mentioned in some of my older videos. So I valued the proximity the UK has to Europe while also being an English-speaking country, so that it would be easier for me to assimilate into and find work and talk to people and make friends. But after living there, I wouldn't say that I didn't like it. It's just that I had more expectations and I was just looking for more. So the first and obvious reason why a lot of people move out of the UK, including British citizens who've lived there all their lives, is the weather. The British weather is known to be gray and gloomy almost all year round, and that really does affect your mood. After not having lived in Canada for a year and a half, I thought that I could cope with British weather. Maybe because I just forgot how gray weather feels like. And that too, persistent gray weather, persistent cold, gloomy weather for days. It's not just the rain, but even the overcast skies just make you feel so heavy. You don't want to do a lot of things. You sometimes just crave the sun. The lack of sun in the UK definitely impacted my energy, especially also because I was living outside of London. Like, I wasn't living in London. I was actually living in Sheffield, which is very far from London. It's actually closer to Manchester, and being a little bit up north and being in a smaller city like Sheffield and not having the same energy that London carries definitely made it harder for me to adjust to that place. But I was super happy that even during the winter, I was able to explore a lot of other parts of the UK that I didn't see the last time I was there. We went to the Cotswolds, we went to Scotland, I went to York right before Christmas, which was amazing. And I caught the Christmas market in time. So I'm super happy about that. Now, point number 2, which is also a huge point for most people living there already who are moving out. Taxes. The UK is also infamous for having really high taxes, but so is the rest of Europe and Canada. But here's the thing, it's not just the income taxes that are high in the UK. And I've talked about this in my older videos when I just moved to the UK. I just never Googled what VAT they charge on goods that you purchase. So everything that you buy there comes at a 20% tax, which is a lot. For context, in Ontario, Canada, we pay 13% tax on goods, and we complain about that a lot because people in Alberta, Canada, pay only 5% tax. So going from all of that and complaining about it to actually paying 20% taxes in the UK, that was a huge change that I was not ready for. The year before, when I traveled, and I actually traveled through Europe, it was nice because I was there as a tourist, so I could take advantage of the VAT refund schemes, and that's why I did shop more than I would like to admit. But that isn't the case at all with the UK. Even if you're a tourist there, you have to pay 20% taxes, which is one of the reasons why I don't understand why so many people go to the UK for vacations and they actually shop a lot. And I'm like mind blown every time because you're actually paying 20% tax on every single thing that you buy. So you are paying more for the same item that you would pay somewhere else. The other thing is council tax. So you have to pay council tax when you live there and you're working. If you're a student, you're exempt from paying the council taxes, but once you've completed your studies, you actually have to pay council taxes, which depend on the zone that you're staying in, so that can be an added bill. They've got really high income taxes, and then you're paying council tax, and then you're paying a really high amount of VAT. So life is really expensive in the UK. Although I will say that because I am a business owner in the UK, when I wanted some supplies for my business, I was able to save on the VAT, because you do get a VAT refund as a business owner if you are also planning to charge VAT. But that's a whole nother topic that I don't think I can cover in this video. It's business taxes and it's super complicated, but taxes are just really high in the UK. And this is definitely something that you should keep in mind if you're still planning to move to the UK in 2025. And I think while we're on the topic of taxes, it would be a good segue to our next point, which is cost of living. As you all know, London is definitely known for really high rent and a high cost of living. But to my surprise, the rest of the UK was not that far behind. Yes, you can find cheaper rentals in other cities and towns in the UK, which is a good deal. And I think in some ways it is either less or quite similar to what you would get in Canada, especially in the GTA, or what you would pay in big cities like Vancouver or Calgary or Halifax. But the most important thing is groceries. I did feel when I was on vacation there that groceries were cheaper. And yes, it is true. A lot of the groceries are actually cheaper, but when you actually convert it and when you factor in the VAT costs and just everything in general, I think it comes out to be almost the same as Canada. Although I will admit it's still a bit cheaper than what you would pay for groceries in Canada, especially really good quality groceries. One thing that the UK does really well is the quality of food. When my friend visited me from Canada, he was also very impressed by the quality of food that they sell at supermarkets in the UK. So you're definitely getting really good food for the price that you pay in the UK. The other thing that's super expensive is transportation. So public transit, they increased the price in 2025. So a one-way ticket, even inside the city, can cost you anywhere between £3 to £4.5. And that's a lot. Like if you're commuting to work every day using public transport, that can really add up to almost £250 to £300 a month. And when you consider how much tax you pay, you're not really making a lot of money after taxes every month when you're working full-time. Even transportation in between cities can get really expensive. For example, I received an interview for a job in Leeds and I was living in Sheffield at the time. And when I calculated just how much it would cost me to go to Leeds every single day and back, that amounted to almost £20 every single day. Even if the cities are just an hour away, it absolutely does not make sense to take public transport because you're going to be spending a lot of money. So at that point, it does make sense for you to get a car, but then that is associated with parking costs because most places don't come with a parking spot. So you're gonna have to rent that, and then you're gonna have to pay for gas, which is also super expensive in the UK. One thing about Canada is that their fuel prices are not that expensive. Though we do compare them to the US a lot of times, and of course the US is going to be the best when it comes to fuel prices, Canada is still better than the rest of Europe and the UK, all thanks to Alberta. So to give you guys a brief idea of what I was paying, I was living in a student accommodation because I'm also enrolled in school, so I did qualify for that, and it was like a sublet, so I didn't have to pay council taxes. So I paid around £340 a month for rent, around £260 a month for food and groceries. I was working from home, so I really didn't have any transportation costs, so I paid around £20 for transportation every month and about £30 for Ubers. But the best part about the UK though was the access to really good quality and affordable phone plans. I only paid £10 a month for like 50 gigs of data, which is just unheard of in Canada. Just for context, £10 would mean only $18 Canadian, and you can't get anything for $18 Canadian. Canadian plans start at $35 to $40. So the £10 a month includes data not just in the UK, but all over Europe. So if you're traveling anywhere in Europe, you can use the same SIM card and you don't have to pay anything extra. So shout out to Leica Mobile for giving us the best phone plans. Rogers and Bell, take notes. Moving on, we have our fourth reason, which is jobs and lower pay. So this is a huge concern in the UK. I was reading a Reddit thread where someone said that salaries in the UK have not been adjusted for over 15 years or something, which is just insane to me because the minimum wage in the UK comes to about £23,000 annually, which after taxes and paying for national insurance comes to about £1,600 a month, which is just not enough. It's not a livable wage at all. And I know why so many people in the UK are struggling. I've also seen this girl on TikTok who goes from like a really far away city all the way to some other city in the UK for her corporate job, which pays her just above minimum wage. But she travels for like 2 to 3 hours every single day working that job. And it's just sad because people have to go to lengths to just make ends meet in the UK. Some of the friends that I made in the UK were also complaining that they graduated with master's degrees in their fields and it was just impossible for them to get a good paying job. And a lot of them moved back home because they could still make a good living back home than actually find a job in the UK because it's just so hard to get a job. I was lucky that I got like 4 or 5 interviews during my time there, and I think a part of the reason is that I did have some experience from Canada. I had worked in Canada for the last 5 years in finance and other sectors in operations, so it was easier for me to get an interview, but I can also understand why it's not so easy for other people who are from countries in Eastern Europe or India. It has a very different economy and workspace and culture as compared to the UK. So if you're already in the UK, I will make another video on my whole experience finding a job in the UK, how much it paid me, how to get an interview, how to get a job in the UK, all of those details. Because if you're already in the UK and you want to live there for the next 2 years, 3 years, or even move there, you can still use that as a resource. All right, moving on to number 5, which is safety concerns. And this is something that affected me the most in my everyday life because there were times that I would not go outside of my apartment after daylight. When I live in a country and I pay taxes and such high taxes for every single thing, it is of utmost importance to me that I'm safe. I can go out at any point of time that I want. And if I decide to move there, if I have a family, I want to make sure that we're all safe. And that is not how I felt in the UK. And it is so sad because living in a Western country, you would think that it's safe. And I've never had an experience like that in Canada or the US. And no, I don't go to like weird parts of the US and I've only been there as a tourist and I've never felt unsafe. Even in Europe, in most places, I've never felt unsafe, especially Eastern Europe. But when I was in the UK, especially in Sheffield, it is just not safe. And I should warn you guys because it is very important for people to understand that just because the UK is a Western country, it doesn't mean that it's very safe or all parts of it are safe. Nothing really happened to me personally. I didn't have an incident, but that's also because I'm a very vigilant and alert person. Like I don't go out after daylight if I don't feel that a place is safe enough for me. I will just not put myself in a situation that can cause any sort of harm to my safety. And I would always make sure that even if I'm going grocery shopping, I would go with a friend. But what I have witnessed in front of me is that I would go to Greg's to grab a snack and there will be homeless people just literally walking in, picking food off the shelves and just walking out in broad daylight. And this is not something that I'm used to. You don't see this happening in Canada. Like anywhere you go, this is just not the norm in Canada, but it seemed like people around me were so immune to that. People around, they didn't even react. For them, it was like an everyday thing. Like this just happens. And one thing that I did notice that when I moved to Sheffield, places would stay open until like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. And by the time I was there for like just over 3 months, we started noticing that stores would just not be open in the evening when there is no daylight because the risk of theft was just so high that they just closed down the stores. So a lot of the times I would just not go out to the gym. So I'm someone who goes to the gym based on its vibes, and we did find a really good gym, but oftentimes I would just not go to the gym after daylight because it's just not safe. And every single day you hear news about people getting stabbed or there's knife incidents, and there's just crime on the rise in the UK at this time. So especially when you keep moving up north is when it gets worse. So let's move on to our next reason why I moved out of the UK. And I think this is a very expected one. It's the healthcare delays. So healthcare in Canada isn't any better anyway. So for some reason, I kept falling sick a lot while I was in the UK. It's not necessarily the UK's fault, but I did have to go to the A&E a few times. I think I went there like 3 or 4 times. And for the Canadians watching, A&E is like their emerge. So I think the service was okay, pretty similar to what you would get in Canada. But I just feel like the solutions they gave me or my experience with the GP just wasn't as great as it would be in Canada. But my standards coming from a Canadian healthcare systems were pretty set. So I think I was okay for the UK. But if you're coming from a country where healthcare is super accessible and it's fast and quick, I think you're gonna have a lot of difficulty when you're in the UK because there's definitely barriers to actually getting to visit a GP or receiving treatment on time. All right, so now moving to personal reasons why I decided to move out of the UK. So, as you guys know, both Rav and I work remotely. We've been working remotely for almost 2 years now. And when I moved to the UK, I was still working remotely. I have my own clients. Rav has his own clients. We had been digital nomads for almost 1.5 years when I moved to the UK. Even before that, in 2024, when we traveled a lot, we were working remotely. So settling down in one place felt so weird to me. I wanted to explore more. I wanted to travel more. I wanted to see more cities, more places, more countries. And I feel like settling down was just making me depressed, honestly. So when I got a job, that's when I realized that I don't want to be in this cubicle. I don't want to go back to this life, at least not yet. And actually finding a job and working for a couple of weeks there made me realize that I can come back to this life at any point of time that I wish. I can get a job in Canada at any point of time. I'm a Canadian citizen. For the next 3 years, I still have the opportunity to go back to the UK if I feel like that is a better choice for me because I still have my youth mobility visa that is valid. I can extend another year on that and just move back to the UK. I know I can get a job because I already did that. So having that confidence after getting a job was super important, and it was a key factor in me deciding to actually make the move. So now you must be wondering why we picked Vietnam as our first location to move to as digital nomad. So Vietnam is not the first place that we had in mind. We actually booked tickets for Brazil. We had a place booked in Rio de Janeiro for almost a month and a half. We were gonna go explore Brazil because that is also a really great hub now. It's up and coming for digital nomads. But at the last moment, we decided not to go to Brazil. Something was telling me just not to go, so we canceled that. We went to India, we visited Rav's grandparents, family, and then we decided to just move to Southeast Asia. We picked Vietnam as opposed to Bali just because we'd already spent quite a bit of money trying to move to the UK, so Bali was just going to be a little bit more of an expensive choice as compared to Vietnam. Vietnam still has quite affordable housing options, and the cost of living in general is less than what you would expect to pay in Bali. And from what we've heard, Bali is getting quite crowded, so we definitely wanted to see how we like Vietnam, just explore this country. I have been here before. I had come to Hanoi 2 years back, and Rav had never visited Vietnam, so yeah, I think Vietnam was an obvious choice to us. And we've absolutely loved the last 3 months here. And I wouldn't say that everything has been perfect. There are some cons to being here as well, but I think I'm gonna leave that for another video. So to conclude, I think I would like to admit that the UK was probably not the best choice for me or for Rav, but I also want to say that it might be the right choice for you, depending on your personal situation. A lot of the people that I met in the UK also wanted to move there because they didn't have a strong passport or they wanted more proximity to the EU. But for us, we don't have that situation. We also don't really need work experience in the UK because we already have Canadian work experience, we already have clients, and being in the UK was just going to make us pay more taxes instead of actually saving some money. So it totally made more sense for us to move out of the UK. But like I said, if you're moving there for school, so they have an amazing education system. So you might still benefit from moving to the UK. And I also want to share some practical content about moving to the UK, and I will make a video on that and release that very soon, because I know you must be wondering if you're already in the process of moving or if you've already moved there, on how to find a job, what bank accounts to open, how to get a credit card. Especially if you're moving to the UK as a Canadian, a big concern is finances, how to sort it out. Are you going to pay taxes in Canada and the UK both? How can you get access to good credit cards in the UK? There's just so many things that you need to figure out, so many variables, and I can totally help with that. So stay tuned for that content. And I'm also going to be posting my 2025 travel content. The first video is going to be my trip to Cyprus, which I took when I was in the UK. And that was an amazing trip. So I'm so excited to share that with you guys. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you want to know anything else about the UK. I am here to share my honest experience and my opinions about moving there, about living there, everything related to the UK. Or if you just want more travel content, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video.